we begin tonight with America's crumbling infrastructure and the budget plan released by the White House yesterday. The money in that plan includes $1.5 trillion for infrastructure, as in fixing rusty bridges, potholes, airports, and much more. And as we know, although it is not much of a surprise, there was a lot of a backlash against spending those big bucks. And today, the president slammed the Democrats for not supporting his plan. Trump tweeted his proposal has received great reviews from everyone besides Democrats. The president added, "It's time to take care of our roads, bridges, tunnels, and airports after many years." Well, that's where we'd like to bring in Republican National Committee spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany. Kayleigh, it's still just a proposal. Nobody's voted on anything yet. But tell us, what is the RNC's view, and are they backing this budget deal?
We absolutely support the president's plan and his budget. We understand that we do have an out-of-control debt. That's something that we have to rein in, absolutely. But we think this budget is the first start of that. We look and there's $3 trillion in deficit savings over a 10-year period. And as Speaker Ryan has said for decades, he's been a fiscal hawk himself. The way we really address our debt is addressing mandatory spending. That's, of course, entitlements like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, not touching the current benefits or current beneficiaries, but bringing down some of the costs there, the waste, the fraud, and abuse. And this budget starts to do that to the tune of $237 billion. That's over a 10-year period. So we think this is the first step.
All right, so here's what Minority Leader Chuck Schumer had to say about the infrastructure plan yesterday. Take a listen.
Instead of proposing direct federal investments to help all parts of the country, the Trump infrastructure plan relies on private parties or state and localities to put up the lion's share of the money. In turn, those entities would either have to charge local taxpayers new tolls or raise taxes and other fees to pay for the new infrastructure.
All right, so what's your view on that? Is that accurate? Some analysis of the bill has said it's really only $200 billion that's being proposed by the federal government, the rest of that trickling down, as Schumer said. Is this infrastructure plan really going to help those state, local level? Is $200 billion enough? What's your view on the Democratic criticism?
Yes, well, I hate to inform Mr. Schumer, but he and his party have already charged the taxpayers $787 billion under the Obama administration when they had an infrastructure plan that failed. President Obama admitted those shovel-ready jobs were not so shovel-ready. They've already charged the taxpayer nearly $1 trillion. Didn't work. So now let's try it this way. Let's try to raise money through the private sector, not taxing American citizens, not send more money through Washington bureaucracy. Didn't work 8 years ago, not going to work again. This is why we need the Trump infrastructure plan.
All right, so let's get to some criticism from Republicans, all right, because we've been hearing about it for the last week or so after the $1.5 trillion deficit that, potentially the tax reform bill could impose. And then, you've got, over the last week or so, people saying, hey, Republicans used to be fiscal hawks. That's how the Tea Party got into power in 2010. They've run on balancing the budget and shrinking the deficit. So have the deficits now turned to doves? I know that you've been a strong supporter of the president and a Republican for a long time. What's your view on the party kind of switching gears here? Now that they've gotten into power, have they just become, those regular Washington politicians who just spend without really any real commitment to reining in deficits?
No, we do want to rein in deficit, but here's what Speaker Ryan said, and I think this is spot-on analysis on his part. We've had a series of crises and emergencies in this country that must be addressed. We don't have a choice. The opioid crisis has wreaked havoc upon society. We have to put money into that. We've seen hurricanes hit our nation, hit Puerto Rico, hit down in Texas. We've got to address that, and that's what this budget does. Likewise, illegal border crossings. Have to address that. Have to have a border wall. That being said, we've got, I would argue,